So you served while Joe Biden was in office. What did you do to release the Epstein files while he was in office?
Now, when Joe Biden came into power, I do believe that we should have released the files. That I'm not defending the previous administration.
That's a man defusing a trap by walking straight into it. A tu quoque, no less. You see, the Trump voter across from him comes in with one job: extract a denial. The question is rehearsed, the trap is loaded, and the whole thing depends on Khanna pushing back, defending the past, deflecting, anything but agreeing. But what does Khanna do? He agrees, on the spot. The trap springs shut on empty air, and then out comes this.
Donald Trump has done more to expose than Joe Biden ever did.
Why hello, my fellow apes, I hope you are well. Today, we're looking at Congressman Khanna sitting across from a young Trump voter named Christian on Jubilee Surrounded series. The topic is the Epstein files. By now, except for a few Trump loyalists, criticism of the handling of the Epstein files has become one of the few truly bipartisan positions. Releasing the remaining has broad support. It's why Khanna built a coalition to force a vote. And what made it remarkable wasn't the Democrats who signed on, like him, it was the Republicans, including some of Trump's most vocal former allies in Congress. And Trump? Well,
we actually thought Trump would support us. Think about it. The coalition I built with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and Nancy Mace, Thomas Massie. And Marjorie said, Donald Trump, you could be a hero. You could be the president who releases these files and meets with the survivors. I was surprised and disappointed that President Trump fought it.
And just in case you think the Trump fought it framing is just a Democrat spin on it, take it from Marjorie Taylor Greene.
He's covering it up. He fought us the entire time. He did everything in his power to stop the Epstein files to be released.
So that's what Christian is up against. But he's smart. He comes in prepared. You'll notice that from the get-go. He's done the timeline work and identified the move he thinks will end the conversation. A clean tu quoque. You served under Biden. You didn't release the files then, so you have no standing to demand the release now. You probably just hate Trump. Orange man bad.
It's sort of Trump derangement syndrome, I guess they call it.
So, alright, what precisely is the tu quoque fallacy? Well, it's Latin for you too, accusing your opponent of hypocrisy as a way to dismiss their argument. You know it, that meme where two Spider-Men point at each other. That's it, visualized. Now, it's a fallacy regardless, but it only lands when there's real hypocrisy underneath. And in this case, there isn't. So watch what happens when the trap springs on empty air. The man who set it spends the next couple of minutes exposing a double standard. Just not Khanna's, his own. Let's get to it.
My first surrounded claim is that the treatment of the Epstein class shows that there are two tiers of justice in America.
This is the thesis that Khanna's defending across this whole exchange, and it's worth pausing on because it tells you exactly what burden any challenger is supposed to carry. Forget the party, forget which president. Across 3 administrations, the handling of the Epstein files has gone the same way. There is a protected class of powerful men, and that pattern is the proof. To beat him, you have to engage with that structure. You have to argue either that the class doesn't exist, or that the handling of the files has been above reproach. Anything less than that is missing the target. And let's hold on to that, because the exchange that follows is going to be a demonstration of someone refusing to engage that target while pretending that he is.
Two tiers of justice in America.
If you would like to debate this claim, please get to the chair in 3, 2, 1.
Hey, Christian.
Mr. Congressman.
I like the boots.
Yeah, thank you.
Where did you get those?
I got those out in Dallas.
Nice.
Yeah. And thank you for being here.
Thank you.
The energy in the room is loose. Khanna's friendly, asking about boots. Regulars will know that we bang on about this. Walking into a conversation with this kind of ease is itself a signal that you're here for a real exchange, not a performance.
And thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Mr. Congressman, when were you elected to Congress?
2016. I started in 2017.
And when did the Epstein stuff first come out? Was that 2008, or when was that?
The trap is being laid, every piece of it being placed on the table. You can tell that he's rehearsed this in his head. Christian is building a timeline. He's establishing that Khanna has been in Congress for almost a decade, through Trump's first term, through all 4 years of Biden, and right now into Trump's second. And he's about to anchor that against the day when the Epstein scandal was already public knowledge. And then Christian drops it in very casually.
When did the Epstein stuff first come out? Was that 2008, or when was that?
Look, 2008 is a very, very precise year to just casually reach for. that is the year that Epstein pleaded guilty to state charges in Florida. You've got to hand it to him. The man has done his homework. The "or when was it" is cover. He knows precisely when it was. He's planting the date in the viewer's mind while pretending to ask for it. That said, this is a bit, well, dishonest of Christian. Sure, Epstein was convicted in 2008, but it wasn't until 2019 that it became a live issue. Khanna's clock, like everyone else's, was set by the scandal, not by who was in the White House.
Was that 2008, or when was that?
Well, he was convicted in
Right.
2008.
2008. So you started when President Trump was in office the first time.
Yeah.
And you served while Joe Biden was
Correct.
in office.
Now the trap is fully assembled. Trump's first term, you were there. Biden, you were there too. Epstein's conviction, 2008, well before all of it. The implicit accusation is loading. If there is such a scandal, and if the evidence has been sitting there since 2008, why are you only making the noise about it now, when the man in the White House isn't on your team? It is honestly a sharp setup. We're going to disagree with him on the substance, but the architecture is pretty good. Build the timeline, anchor the date, walk your target into a position where the answer they have to give exposes them. And if it lands, it is rhetorically brilliant.
And you served while Joe Biden was
Correct.
in office.
Yes.
He's from my home state in Delaware. Not a fan of him. I voted for President Trump proudly the first time I ever voted this past year.
Really?
Yeah, first time I ever voted.
What made you vote for him?
He's America first. And that's what we need.
What about all the $200 billion he's spending on
Let's
the
just
war
get
in
back to
Iran?
Epstein files. Let's get back to Epstein files.
The moment Christian utters the phrase America first, Khanna doesn't let it sit. He immediately probes by asking about the $200 billion Trump has spent bombing the Middle East. Because America first is a slogan, and slogans only work as long as nobody asks them to account for themselves. Khanna is asking it to account for itself. And if Christian engages, if he tries to defend the spending or really litigate the foreign policy or square the slogan with the receipts, he'd be off the Epstein files entirely and stuck defending a totally different and totally difficult claim. Now, to his credit, and I do mean credit, he sees it coming.
Let's
the
just
war
get
in
back to
Iran.
Epstein files. Let's get back to Epstein files.
He doesn't take the bait, he doesn't try to win the side quest. He recognizes that the only ground on which he has any leverage at all is the ground he came in on, the ground he's apparently prepared thoroughly for, and he plants his feet there and refuses to be moved. That is a debater's instinct. It is a good one. He knows what his lane is, and he knows that that ain't it.
I know my lane and that ain't it.
Here's a story where you would expect the facts to just speak for themselves. Trump threatens to cut off all US trade with Spain over refusal to use military bases in Iran war. You see, Spain declined US military use of its bases for strikes on Iran. Trump threatened a full trade embargo.
So we're going to cut off all trade with Spain. We don't want anything to do with Spain.
And so Prime Minister Sanchez responded with 3 words: no to war. Simple, right? And yet, Ground News shows 442 sources covering this story, 61 left, 62 right, and 109 centrist, with framing so different you'd be forgiven for thinking that they were reporting from separate planets. This level of insight is only possible thanks to Ground News, a website and app designed to make reading the news easier and more data-driven. Every day, they gather thousands of news articles from all across the world and organize them by story, with each coming with visual breakdowns of reporting bias, reliability, and ownership to give you a cleaner sense of how the news is being framed. Let's return to our story, and you can follow along at ground.news/rationality. The Hamilton Spectator, leaning left with high factuality, leads with Sanchez as the protagonist. Spain's Sanchez stands firm on opposition to war in Iran despite Trump's trade threat, warning the conflict risks playing Russian roulette with millions. One courageous leader holding the line against Washington. Then there's WLT report, far right with low factuality. Breaking. President Trump cuts off all trade with Spain. Trump is tired of being treated unfairly. And Spain's PM is of course dismissed as their leftist PM. No geopolitics, no alliance considerations, no nuance. Just a victory lap. And Euronews, centrist with very high factuality, simply reports no to war. Sanchez reaffirms Spain's stance on Trump's Iran campaign. No heroes, no villains, just what happened. Same event, 3 completely different stories. And without Ground News, most people would only ever see one of them. If you want to start seeing the full picture for yourself, right now you can get 40% off Ground News' Vantage plan at ground.news/rationality, or scan the QR code on screen now. You'll be supporting independent media and, indeed, this channel at the same time. Thanks.
I know my lane and that ain't it.
So, here's what Christian's been building up to.
Let's get back to Epstein files. So you served while Joe Biden was in office. What did you do to release the Epstein files while he was in office?
That is the strike. That is his kill shot. Now, if you'll allow me to speculate, the fantasy in Christian's head right now is something like this. Khanna stammers, Khanna deflects, Khanna says, well, it was complicated under Biden, and the comeback, well, it writes itself, doesn't it? Oh, so it's only urgent when a Republican's in office. Drop the mic, walk off, post the clip. That's the entire play. That is what his Tuco Quay aims to achieve. So Christian's implicit point, if it's a point at all, is that Khanna didn't act on Epstein when Biden was in power. So his demand to act on Epstein now has no standing. He's attempting to discredit Khanna's prompt by pointing out that he failed to meet his own standard. But here's the thing. Even if that landed, it wouldn't touch the prompt. 2 tiers of justice across every administration isn't refuted by your side failed too. It is, in fact, confirmed by it. All Christian would be proving is that the Democrats are part of the protected class too. And make no mistake, Christian thinks that he's cornered a sitting congressman on camera. Now, we find out whether the trap holds.
What did you do to release the Epstein files while he was in office?
In 2019.
No, while Joe Biden was in office.
Well, let me explain. Yeah. In 2019, we called for the release of those files, Elijah Cumming and I, in the Oversight Committee. We called for an investigation. Now, when Joe Biden came into power, I do believe we should have released the files. That I'm not defending the previous administrations because I've gotten to know these survivors. And I believe that the files should have been released years ago.
Khanna answers it head on. And by the way, there's real procedural cover he could have reached for here. There was an open federal grand jury investigation running through Garland's tenure, and the law generally requires documents from open investigations to stay sealed. Basically, the Department of Justice wasn't actually authorized to release this material until Congress passed the Epstein Files Transparency Act in November of 2025. So Khanna could spend 2 minutes walking Christian through all of that. He could turn this into a wonky procedural argument about grand jury secrecy and statutory authority, and he would be technically correct. Instead, he does something far more simpler. Before giving the concession, he plants the flag he's entitled to.
2019, we called for the release of those files, Elijah Cumming and I, in the Oversight Committee. We called for an investigation.
And he plants it as a matter of record, with no defensive spin. This way, he gets to make the concession from a position of demonstrated consistency, which means the concession costs him pretty much nothing personally. He has been on the record demanding the release of the files all along. And then, having established that, he hands Christian the admission very succinctly.
Now, when Joe Biden came into power, I do believe we should have released the files. That I'm not defending the previous administration.
Short and sweet, huh? Now, look at what this does to the trap. Christian came in here to extract a denial. The machine he built, the entire what about Biden setup, runs on Khanna refusing to admit the failure. The denial is the fuel. Without it, the engine doesn't turn over. Christian was prepared to spend this exchange, all of it, forcing the admission out of him. And yet Khanna just hands it across the table.
We should have released the files.
So now Christian has a problem that he didn't plan for. The concession was supposed to be the destination. He's already there. And once you're already there, you have to ask yourself, what was the concession supposed to actually prove? What is the next step in the argument? You've spent all that runway getting there. Now what?
Well, this sucks.
Because here's the thing that his Tuco Quay is hiding. The implicit logic of you didn't act under Biden is that prior inaction somehow licenses present inaction. And again, even if true, it doesn't touch the actual question. Should these files be released? The logic goes, if Khanna didn't get this done 2 years ago, he has no standing to demand that it gets done now. And the moment you say that out loud, it falls apart, because it doesn't follow. Past failure doesn't license present failure. That's why Tuco Quay is a fallacy in the first place. 2 wrongs don't make a right. To the contrary, in fact, that something should have been done 2 years ago is an argument for doing it now. not against it. And that's before we even get to the conditions that have changed. The environment is more developed now. The survivors have been more vocal. The political conditions are different. Don't forget, Trump and his cabinet ran on the very promise of releasing these files. They're the ones who put it in the spotlight. Critically, as we've said before, Congress has passed legislation authorizing the release of the files. Saying you didn't do it then, so shut up about it now, is a way of using past failure to protect present failure. But Khanna didn't give him the denial. And just like that, the tables turn.
Well, well, well. How the turntables...
And he's not done.
I believe that the files should have been released years ago. When we started this, we actually thought Trump would support us. Think about it, the coalition I built with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and Nancy Mace and Thomas Massie. And Marjorie said, Donald Trump, you could be a hero. You could be the president who releases these files and meets with the survivors.
Khanna is now doing something genuinely dangerous to Christian's meticulously planned project. Instead of trying to defend Democrats or muddy the water, he reaches over and picks up Trump's own brand, the entire drain the swamp, expose the shadowy elite, Pizzagate-coded promise that animated MAGA from day one, and holds it up as a mirror.
Drain the swamp, and that's what we're doing.
His coalition is the giveaway. It's a far cry from a Democratic operation. It's Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Nancy Mace, Thomas Massie. These are not names you cite to source partisan points. These are the people you cite when you want Trump's own base on the prosecution. This is what Khanna is saying. The people who built their political identity around exposing elite corruption begged your guy to be the one to do it. And he wouldn't. He's redirecting the standard rather than defending his own record. Trump set the bar. Trump's own allies came to him with the bar, and Trump walked away from it.
Donald Trump, you could be a hero. You could be the president who releases these files and meets with the survivors. I was surprised and disappointed that President Trump fought it. I was surprised and
let me just stop you there.
The second Khanna starts naming what Trump actually did, Christian cuts him off because Khanna is about to plant a flag that cannot be pulled back out. Trump actively fought the release of these files. The president, who promised to drain the swamp, turned out to be the monster.
I didn't know about the swamp creatures being as bad as they are. They're bad.
Quick question of the rhetorical variety. That's you, right?
It's all been a big hoax. It's perpetrated by the Democrats, and some stupid Republicans and foolish Republicans fall into the net.
If you want to know what fought it actually looked like, here's the context. There was a discharge petition working its way through Congress, basically a way to force a stalled bill to the floor for a vote. Marjorie Taylor Greene had signed it, and this is what she got in return.
And he was yelling at me because I wouldn't take my name off of the discharge petition. And I told the president, there's no way I'll take my name off of here. These are women that were at 14 and 16 years old, and we have to release Epstein files. It's the right thing to do. It's what we promised. And he was so angry at me. And he told me that his friends would get hurt. He said people that I supposedly know.
As is clear by now, Christian is a sharp operator, and he recognizes the danger off the terrain immediately. He came in with a clear script in mind, and that script does not survive a conversation about what Trump has been doing for the last several months. So, he stops the train, he pulls the emergency brakes, he tries to drag the conversation back to the one piece of ground he thought he could hold.
Let me just stop you there.
The problem is, you can interrupt a sentence. You can't unintroduce the frame. Khanna has already named the standard, named the coalition, and named Trump's refusal, which, at this point, is beyond a reasonable doubt.
He's covering it up.
So Christian changes the subject, but every viewer just heard the thing that he's trying to talk over.
I was surprised and
let me just stop you there.
Yeah,
Who released the Epstein files? Was it Joe Biden or was it President Trump?
Well, he did it because Massie and I forced his hand.
Christian recycles the question. The original challenge was, why didn't you act under Biden? And Khanna has already given him a full concession on this. Now he's asking it again, hoping a different framing produces a different result. And the reason for the recycling is simple. The first question stopped working the moment Khanna conceded it.
Well, he did it because Massie and I forced his hand.
That is the laugh of someone who has been inside the room where the fight actually happened, without any defensive edge. Khanna's being asked to credit Trump for the release, not just to confirm that it happened during his presidency, which is a completely different thing. And he knows, because he was there, that Trump didn't release these files out of any commitment to transparency. He was dragged across the line. Khanna and Massey forced the vote.
Why do you think your supporters in particular have been so interested in the Epstein story and so upset about how it's been handled? Why do you think that is?
Why they would be so interested? He's dead for a long time. He was never a big factor in terms of life.
And he was yelling at me because I wouldn't take my name off of the discharge petition.
The framing that Christian's question implies, that Trump deserves credit for the release, collapses on contact with the person who did the forcing.
Well, he did it because Massey and I forced his hand with the...
So why didn't you force Joe Biden's hand?
Back to square one. Once again, the same question Khanna already answered, already conceded, already accepted responsibility for, recycled as if none of that happened. This is the tell. Christian's leverage in this exchange depends on the concession never being enough. Because the moment Khanna's yes, you're right, the file should have been released long ago, is treated as a real answer, the conversation has to move forward. And forward is exactly where Christian doesn't want to go. Forward is where Trump lives. Forward is where the current obstruction is still happening.
Well, he did it because Massey and I forced his hand with the...
So why didn't you force Joe Biden's hand?
Well, we should have. I'm not...
Why didn't you?
Well, because at that point, there was a process, but we should have. I got to know the survivors in 2025. I got to know them personally. Had I gotten to know them earlier, I would have, and I wish someone had.
Khanna adds a little texture here. There was a process, he came to know the survivors personally in 2025, and things might have moved differently if he had known them sooner. But he doesn't dilute the concession. He's still holding the "we should have" line, and he said it twice now, without hedging. A failure is a failure.
But we should have.
What Khanna isn't doing is naming the maneuver. He could, at this point, simply stop and say, Christian, you've asked me the question. I've answered it. What's your actual point? He's taking each question at face value, which means he keeps answering instead of pointing at what's happening. That's not a fatal mistake, but it does mean that Christian gets to keep running the loop a little longer.
I would have, and I wish someone had.
Did Merrick Garland protect the Epstein class?
Now the blame gets relocated. If Khanna won't be the villain of the story, maybe Garland will. The strategy is the same. Keep the conversation pointed backwards. Keep it pointed at Democrats. Keep it away from Trump, who's currently sitting on 3 million files. Again, here's the move that Khanna could make. Just grant it. Let's assume that you're right about Garland. So what? What's the principle that you're defending? That a partial release closes the case? That what's already been released exempts Trump from accountability for what's still being held? He could force Christian to actually articulate the claim, the one his line of questioning is quietly resting on. That claim, cleanly spoken, is indefensible. He'd have to say that half a job is enough, even after the evidence has multiplied, even after the law has been passed, even after the survivors are publicly demanding the rest of the files.
Did Merrick Garland protect the Epstein class?
He didn't protect. Here's what the problem was. It needed a law of Congress. The Justice Department couldn't release things because of their policy until Congress passed a law. Congress had to say you can override the privacy considerations and you can release it. So, yeah, should we have tried to pass this law in the Biden administration or first Trump administration? Yes. But let me ask you this. Now that we've passed the law, why don't you think they should just release the rest of the 3 million files? And Trump, fine, he can take credit for it and try to get justice for the survivors. Why aren't they doing that? I guess that's my question.
He accepts that they should have acted sooner under both Biden's and Trump's first administrations, and then turns the entire thing around. Let's walk through it. First, he gives the substantive answer that's been sitting underneath this exchange. The DOJ couldn't unilaterally release these files.
Congress had to say you can override the privacy considerations and you can release it.
The Epstein Files Transparency Act in November of 2025 is what unlocked that door. So the answer as to why it wasn't done under Biden is a real boring procedural one, and Khanna just put it in plain English. Then, and this is the clever move, he tells Trump to go ahead and take the credit.
Trump, fine, he can take credit for it and try to get justice for the survivors.
Because he doesn't care who releases these files. Republican, Democrat, it makes no difference to him. He just wants them out. But the credit Khanna's offering is conditional. He can take credit if he earns it. And earning it means doing the rest of the job, releasing the remaining files, going after the people named in them. And, focusing on justice for the victims.
Why aren't they doing that? I guess that's my question.
Which lands Khanna exactly where he wants to be, right back at his prompt. By implication, there's an Epstein class and Trump is protecting them. It is a brilliant move. Christian has spent this entire conversation establishing that releasing the files is good, that Khanna should have pursued it earlier, that the failure to release it is the moral failure he's prosecuting, and that he's pressing Khanna on it. Christian himself has set the stage. So now Khanna asks the only question the show allows: why aren't they releasing the rest? This is a great example of a double bind. You see, a double bind occurs when someone traps another between two irreconcilable choices, making each response carry consequences. If Christian says they should release the rest of the files, then he's standing exactly where Khanna started, which collapses his entire line of questioning. But if he says they shouldn't release the rest of the files, then he's left defending the very two-tier system that Khanna is criticizing.
Why aren't they doing that? I guess that's my question.
How many files have been released so far?
Christian knows that he can't give a straight answer, so he gives no answer at all. Instead, he deflects by asking a question off his own. It's a stall. Khanna has just asked him whether the remaining files should be released, and instead of saying yes or no, Christian is shopping for inventory.
How many files have been released so far?
3 million. They haven't released half of them by their own admission. And some of those files that they haven't released, those are the ones where the survivors are naming the rich and powerful men who them or them. So my question to you is, do you think that the rich and powerful people who have been legitimate accusations of or being pedophiles or giving money to Epstein in illegal ways, do you think they should be investigated?
Khanna gives him the number, 3 million. And then he does something far more important than answer the question. He names the class. Forget files, forget documents, the rich and powerful men who and these survivors. That is who we're talking about. The protected class, the two-tier justice system.
Some of those files that they haven't released, those are the ones where the survivors are naming the rich and powerful men who them or them.
He drags the abstraction into the daylight. We are no longer talking about paperwork, we are talking about specific, real, alleged perpetrators that the unreleased half of these files would expose. And then he locks in the principle once more. Forget the partisan scoreboard for a second. Should the rich and powerful people accused of these crimes be investigated? Yes or no? It's the most basic question in the world. It is the question that any honest participant would answer in a heartbeat. And Khanna, once more, sets it up so that there is no third option. But, well, you know how they say that the best predictor of someone's future behavior is their past behavior? Yeah. Considering Christian's track record, do you care to guess what he does next?
So my question to you is, do you think that the rich and powerful people who have been legitimate accusations of or being pedophiles or giving money to Epstein in illegal ways, do you think they should be investigated?
Donald Trump has done more to expose pedophiles than Joe Biden ever did.
Yep. Another non-answer.
That is a damning non-answer.
Christian wriggles, and the wriggle takes a very specific shape. He ranks Trump against Biden. That's the move.
You're fired. Get out of here.
When asked a clear, categorical, moral question, should powerful be investigated, he answers with a comparative partisan one. The logic underneath it is that doing more than Biden buys immunity from doing the rest. It's yet another deflection, and he hasn't even paid us the courtesy of switching up his form.
Why aren't they doing that? I guess that's my question.
How many files have been released so far?
Now, do you see what's missing from Christian's answer this time?
Donald Trump has done more to expose pedophiles than Biden ever did.
The word yes. He cannot bring himself to say yes. I think it's quite clear that Christian is far from oblivious of the optics. He knows that saying yes would mean conceding the principle that Khanna just laid out, which would in turn mean conceding that the unreleased files carry weight, which, finally, would mean conceding that the people sitting on them right now, Trump's administration, are the ones currently obstructing accountability. So instead, he reaches for the only thing he has left, the scoreboard. Trump beats Biden. That is the substance of his answer. And this is the pattern that we keep seeing. Christian's dialogue rests, in its entirety, on questions and comparisons. He asks, he ranks, he never concedes. Not even once. At this point, I have to admit that the consistency is genuinely impressive. Khanna, by contrast, has already acknowledged that we should have acted sooner, already let Trump take credit for the partial release, and has already moved on. One side is reciprocating, the other is extracting, and the asymmetry is becoming impossible not to see.
Donald Trump has done more to expose pedophiles than Joe Biden ever did.
No, but put aside that the point. Yes, he's complied half complied with the law. Do you think they should investigate and prosecute them? And do you think they should release the other half of the file?
Khanna refuses yet more bait. Partisan comparisons are a black hole. He again grants the partial credit. Yes, half complied. Fine. Take the win. And then restates the question.
Do you think they should investigate and prosecute them? And do you think they should release the other half of the file?
Khanna's question is now sharper than it was a moment ago. The demand has stacked up. Investigate, persecute, release the rest. He's tightening the screw because Christian's evasion has told him everything he needs to know. The discomfort isn't around the abstract principle, it's around the specific action. So Khanna makes the action concrete. Investigate, persecute, release. 3 demands. 1 yes or no. There is genuinely nowhere left to go that doesn't expose Christian. Either he agrees, and the premise of his attack on Khanna becomes the premise of an attack on Trump, or he hedges, and in that hedging, he becomes the monster he came to slay. He becomes the guy defending the Epstein class.
And do you think they should release the other half of the file?
They should investigate everyone, including
but they're
Democrat
not.
donors.
I am telling you, this man simply will not concede a point. Honestly, it's impressively reflexive. He can't even agree on a universal moral principle without immediately pointing at the other team, which is the opposite of what Khanna has been doing this whole conversation.
They should investigate everyone, including
but they're
Democrat
not.
donors.
But they should
prosecute all of them.
But why aren't they doing? They're not even investigating the Democratic donors. They're people
Should investigate all of them.
Well, so you agree they should do that? I've been calling. Some of these people are people who donated. Steve Tisch donated to Democrats.
The partisan qualifier was an invitation to fight about whose donors get targeted. That's the trap. And most politicians would walk into it gratefully because it lets them score points on their opponents. Khanna doesn't step into it. Instead, he pockets the agreement and immediately widens it back out, even naming Democratic donor Steve Tisch.
Steve Tisch donated to Democrats.
By volunteering a Democrat name, Christian can't retreat to, well, you only care about Republicans. That door is shut. The principle is, if it isn't clear by now, universal. Now, let's step back and look at the shape of this exchange for a moment. Khanna is conceding, providing names, pinning down positions, offering specifics. Christian, on the other hand, gives us this.
Should investigate all of them.
And nothing else. He won't say who's currently failing to do it, won't say whether the current administration should be the ones doing it, won't engage with a single substantive question that's been put to him. Like, ever. And the longer this goes on, the worse it looks for him.
Some of these people are people who donated. Steve Tisch donated to Democrats.
Were any of your donors on the list?
Yes.
After offering the smallest, albeit backhanded concession, Christian is back on the attack. He's narrowing the moral question down to a single personalized demand. Did your people show up in this? It's an attempted gotcha posing as a demand for rigor. And Khanna just says yes.
Yes.
No hedge, no deflection, no qualification. Yes. Which means that Christian is now in the position he keeps finding himself in. The answer he was hoping to extract has been handed to him for free. And he has to figure out, on the fly, what the next attack is. Because the clean gotcha moment never quite materializes. Khanna has already answered the question directly.
Were any of your donors on the list?
Yes. Yeah, I'm for investigating.
Have you spoken with them about the Epstein files?
I have not.
You have not? What's holding you back from that?
Well, I've
Are they giving you money still?
I don't think so.
We're no longer talking about whether the Epstein files should be released or which administration is currently sitting on them. We're talking about whether Ro Khanna has personally picked up the phone and confronted individual donors. The purity test keeps escalating. First, it was, did you act under Biden?
Why didn't you force Joe Biden's hand?
Then, are any of your donors on the list?
Were any of your donors on the list?
And now it's, have you personally interrogated each one of them?
Have you spoken with them about the Epstein files?
And notice the question that Christian isn't asking. He clearly has a double standard here. But instead of presenting it as a clean, formal fallacy, it's operating more as a rhetorical technique, where he's selectively scrutinizing one side while leaving the other untouched. He never turns his standard on himself, never asks whether the current administration's donors are on the list, never asks whether Trump's donors have been confronted. The standard exists for one person in this room, and one person only.
They give you money still?
I don't think so. No one who's on. No, but I've said that if there are donors of mine who are on the list, that doesn't matter. They should still come before the Oversight Committee. There should still be investigations. This has always been bipartisan.
We have to appreciate Khanna's discipline. He absorbs the hit and reasserts the rule. It doesn't matter if they're my donors. It doesn't matter how recent or how direct the connection is. Oversight Committee, investigation, full stop. It's the same move that he's been making throughout, and it keeps working because the principle he's standing on is genuinely indifferent to who it catches. Donors, Republicans, Democrats, Steve Tisch, anyone. The rule applies regardless. Tribe and wallet are equally inside the net. And every time that Christian tries to localize the problem to Khanna personally, Khanna universalizes it right back.
That doesn't matter. They should still come before the Oversight Committee. There should still be investigations. This has always been bipartisan.
Which leaves Christian in yet another familiar bind. Yet another concession he was hunting for has been freely given. The personal vulnerability he was trying to expose has been openly acknowledged. So, what's left? Another question. Always another question. You see, the moment he stops asking, he has to start answering. And the one thing his performance has been engineered to avoid is the moment he has to say what he thinks should happen.
There should still be investigations. This has always been bipartisan. Are
you going to bring Merrick Garland in to testify before the Oversight Committee?
And we're back. Same key, out of tune as usual. Another Democratic name, another demand for accountability, flowing in one direction only. Let's think about the optics for a second. Christian's performance is effective, in the narrow sense that it keeps the spotlight on Khanna at all times, but it's definitely bad faith, because the implicit pretense is that he's pursuing accountability as a principle, and what he's been doing throughout is pursuing it as a weapon, and weapons, by definition, only point one way.
Are you going to bring Merrick Garland in to testify before the Oversight Committee?
Yeah, I'd support that. I mean, I would, yeah, to understand why the files were not released. But now, would you support the idea that Pam Bondi should actually open up investigations?
The asymmetry surfaces a little closer. Khanna commits on the spot. Garland? Sure. Bring him in. Let him explain. The principle is the principle. And then, the test.
But now, would you support the idea that Pam Bondi should actually open up investigations?
Pam Bondi, the Attorney General who actually had the files and the power to act on them.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now.
That was a lie.
And who, as we now know, was fired by Trump over her handling of those very files last month. By the way, it's worth saying that at the time of recording this Jubilee episode, Bondi was still Attorney General. The firing came afterwards. And in retrospect, this ages beautifully, doesn't it? The AG Khanna is demanding action from would, a few months later, be fired by Trump himself, precisely for her handling of those very files. It's beautiful.
But now, would you support the idea that Pam Bondi should actually open up investigations?
She's already been subpoenaed. She's going to appear before the committee.
Oh boy. Khanna asked about investigations and prosecutions, and Christian answers with a subpoena to appear before the committee.
She's already been subpoenaed. She's going to appear before the committee.
Those are not the same thing, are they? Christian waves the subpoena like it's the finish line. She'll appear, accountability handled. Yet appearing and accountability turned out to be very different things, didn't they? Bondi sat down with the committee, with two DOJ lawyers beside her. One of them put a hand over the mic and told her not to answer. Asked whether Trump directed any of it, the DOJ's reply was, quote, "We refuse to provide answers." That's the appearance Christian was banking on. So it's once again an evasive non-answer. And that is the giveaway. If your standard for the other team is investigate and prosecute, and your standard for your own is, well, she's been subpoenaed to show up, that's exactly what a double standard looks like.
She's already been subpoenaed. She's going to appear before the committee.
No, but that she should start opening up investigations against some of these men. I mean, there's a survivor who told me she was 17. The person's in the files. No investigations being open. There's no investigation open about Leon Black, about Les Wexner. Why not?
I think
All right, we got to pause there. Okay. You've been voted out by the majority.
Good to see you.
Khanna has been patient. He's let Christian drag him through Biden, through Garland, through why didn't you do it then in every grammatical configuration the English language allows, and he's conceded everything that was personally his to concede. And now, having met every demand that Christian made, he hands over the bill. He drops down a level, past files and transparency and documents released, those abstractions Christian has been hiding behind for the entirety of their exchange, and he names a survivor. He names her age. He names Leon Black. He names Les Wexner. These have stopped being talking points and become people. One who was at 17, and two who were named in the files but face no investigation.
There's no investigation open about Leon Black, about Les Wexner. Why not?
Alright, that was a lot. So let's step back and see the full picture. Christian came in with a tu quoque trap. He expected Khanna to do everything he could to avoid that trap, but Khanna didn't, did he? And when he stood firmly on it and endured the sting, Christian spent the rest of the conversation scrambling, recycling the question, ducking answers, trying to resurrect his original plan at all costs.
What did you do to release the Epstein files while he was in office? Why didn't you force Joe Biden's hand? Did Merrick Garland protect the Epstein class?
By the end, Christian was the one cornered, caught between agreeing with Khanna and defending a far more informed Justice Department that hasn't opened a single investigation into the men named in the files. True to form, he picked the non-answer over the concession.
She's already been subpoenaed. She's going to appear before the committee.
Which is especially rich considering that Trump fired Pam Bondi precisely over her handling of the Epstein files. So the lesson here is clear. A trap is only as good as the thing it catches, and a quick gotcha ain't it. And since Khanna immediately conceded what he needed to, Christian turned into the very thing he wanted his opponent to be. Someone defending evil men from justice. The other lesson, one that we regularly regurgitate here on Rationality Rules, is Khanna's use of concrete language. He turned abstractions into specifics, millions of files and a vague class of powerful men into a 17-year-old survivor, Leon Black, and Les Wexner.
There's a survivor who told me she was 17. The person's in the files. No investigations being open. There's no investigation open about Leon Black, about Les Wexner. Why not?
Now, to give Christian his due, the man came in prepared. He built the setup, done the timeline work, and ran the play in his head before he sat down. Probably far too many times. But here's the thing. When your trap doesn't work, and yet you keep recycling it, the only person it traps is you. And that, my fellow apes, is how you lose a debate you came in confident you were gonna win.
Do you think they should investigate and prosecute them? And do you think they should release the other half of the file?
Sorry to disappoint you, Yugi. Huh? You triggered my trap card! Power balance!
They should investigate everyone, including
but
the Democrat donors.
Anyhow, as always, thank you kindly for the view, and an extra special thank you to everyone who supports the channel, including today's sponsor, Ground News.